Welcome to business model number 6 called the Courier, out of the top 10 business models that I have found around the globe. And you can find all top 10 listed in this book called Secrets Below the Surface, Where to Work and Where to Invest. Now, why would you even care about a business model of a company? Just to remind you, the different stakeholders that exist inside a company, whether they be employees are stakeholders, shareholders are stakeholders, even if it's a public or a private company, you can still own shares of the company. And then all the people that have ever lent money to the company. And in this case, we call them bondholders. The returns to all three of these different stakeholders are much, much better for companies with good business models than for companies with inferior business models or companies that are just limping along. So for example, you'll find if you were an employee and you're working for a company with a good business model, you would have way more opportunities for growth inside that company. Or if you were lending the money to the company, either you bought shares or you were lending in the bond market or debt, then you'd find that the returns offered by good business model companies are far superior to returns offered by other companies that are particularly possibly just limping along. The number one determinant over time of long-term returns to any of those stakeholders that we just mentioned, the number one determinant of better returns is business model. Number 2 and number 3 are important, industry growth and macro, but if the business model is superior, it can usually dwarf any weaknesses that are going on inside the other two. Super important. So today we're going to talk about business model, as I said, number 6 in the series, and it's called the Courier. And the basics are that you set up some kind of a business and you calculate how much it's going to cost you for manufacturing, and you add in trucks and you add in raw material and you add in all of those costs to run your entire business. And then you say, well, now if I can run my entire business at, let's say, 2/3 capacity or 3/4 of capacity, what would it cost me to do so? What would it cost me per unit to do so? And then you turn around to long-term stable businesses and you say, I would like to offer you that capacity at that low price, which is your cost, at that low price, if we can do this for multiple years. The companies on the other side are not going to find somebody cheaper than you. You're doing it at cost. If somebody is offering at a cheaper price, it means they're doing it below cost. Those companies are going to be weary of signing contracts with those below cost suppliers. So that's kind of the gist of the first part of the Courier business model. The second part is when it gets really interesting. I told you that when you calculated all that at cost, that you did it at either 2/3 or 3/4 of your capacity. Now you have either 1/3 or 1/4 of your capacity to go out and sell in any direction, in any capacity that you can, in order to try to make as much money as you possibly can with that remaining capacity that you have. Sound kind of complicated? It's not. It's very simple. Let's look at an example using some simple numbers, and then hopefully you get a better idea of how this works. So let's say that you were a processing plant that generated some kind of a gas, that you were collecting raw material and you're producing some kind of a gas, special gas that you were selling into the marketplace. And then let's say that over here there was a bunch of manufacturers, they all kind of collecting around in either a particular city or a particular neighborhood or industrial park or something, and they required that kind of a gas. They would love to have that kind of a gas at a competitive price. So you build a pipeline. You build a pipeline from your place, and you build it over to this area here so that you can supply the different manufacturers. And then you calculate, okay, how much did it cost me to build this pipeline? So because we're going to go to these clients and we're going to try to sign long-term contracts with them. So you calculate, and I'm just going to use some round numbers because we'll just keep it simple to get the concept proper, and then in real life, the real numbers are always a little bit more complicated, but as long as the concept is good, we got it made. So let's say it costs you, and we'll just say it costs you $60 million to build that pipeline. And your factory. That includes your factory. So you built the whole thing for $60 million. And then let's say that, it's only going to last you about 20 years, okay? So you're going to be able to say that this whole thing will cost you about $3 million per year. Okay, 60, very simple math, 60 million over 20 years, $3 million per year. And this is super, super important because you're going to need to have these numbers when you go and see these clients to be able to execute this type of a business model. So let's do a little bit of an accounting over here on this side. So we build the factory and we build the pipeline, and the whole thing cost us, as I said, 60 divided by 20 years, and it costs us $3 million per year. But that's not everything that it's going to cost in order to run this business, right? You're going to need to do maintenance on this pipeline. It's going to leak, or a pump's going to go, or there's going to have to be changes, parts and different things. And so you are going to have some maintenance as well. Now, before you can calculate all this stuff, you need to know how many units of gas you're producing and how many units of gas you're selling. So in this case, we're building a factory and a pipeline that can make 400,000 units of gas. I'm just picking some numbers. And this whole thing, 60 million to make 400,000 units of gas, okay? And it's going to cost me $3 million per year for the factory, and then the maintenance itself is going to cost me, I'm going to pick a number, I'm going to say $2 million per year of maintenance, so lots of pumps and lots of spare parts. And then the running of this factory, including all of the raw material coming in and the processing, whatever ends up happening inside this whole factory, the processing, let's say that you collect the raw materials and you make the gas, and that all costs you, let's say, now you're going to need to know, well, how much gas am I making? We're going to choose 3/4 of the capacity that you built. Okay, this is part of the Courier's magic. So we're going to say we're going to collect and make 300,000 units, and the whole thing, all of that's an expensive one. That's going to cost us about $20 million per year. The factory's almost up and running. It just needs people and trucks and different things like that. And so we have salaries of all of the different people, and we have trucks and the gas for the trucks that run around and do all kinds of different things, and forklifts and all that kind of stuff. And let's say that costs $5 million per year for 300,000 units. So if you add this all up, you've got 25, 30 million per year to run this factory, to produce 300,000 units. Okay? So now you go to these big manufacturing plants that are sitting here at the end of your pipe, and you say, I tell you what, I am willing to supply you. I'm going to sell you this gas, and so let's say you went to the 4 of them, and you could secure 300,000 units of gas if you supply it at $100 per unit. Now, the way that you came up with this is that you figured out what the cost was for 3/4 of your capacity, right? 3/4 of your capacity, 300,000 over something that could do 400,000. But you figured out what the cost was for 300,000 units. It cost you about 30 million per year. And so the cost of those 300,000 units is about $100 per unit. Okay, just simple math. So you go there and you sell it at cost to the large clients, and you sign hopefully longer term commitments that they're going to take this for a couple of years, and then you can renegotiate the price and all that kind of stuff. But you secure with these beautiful long-term manufacturers, you secure your at $100 a unit. You're now selling 3/4 of your capacity, but you're doing it all at cost. So you're not making any money. You're doing it at cost. But what you do have is you have an extra 100,000 units because you made this factory and this pipe to be able to contribute, to be able to manufacture 400,000 units of the product. And so what you do is you hire a second sales force, I'm going to use green, a second sales force, who then goes out to try to sell the extra capacity that you have. So in this case, 100,000 units. It's sell the extra capacity, and maybe they tap into the pipeline in different places, and you sell the extra capacity, 100,000 units of gas, and you compensate them to sell this at the highest price that they possibly can. And what you're going to, maybe it requires a little bit of different processing here, and so you're going to have to add that into the cost of those extra 100,000. Maybe there's maybe it's little cylinders, and then the cylinders get shipped off to welding shops, or maybe it's to a healthcare facility that takes some of your gas here and things. But these are less reliable clients. Less large. They might take someday, and some they don't take another for a week, and you can sell it for a lot more than $100 per unit likely. History shows that in cases like this you can sell it for $200 or $300 or $500 per unit to these smaller, infrequent clients. And you incentivize that sales force, that second sales force, to go out and sell those 100 units for as much money as they possibly can. They're almost free units because you've calculated most of your costs in the 300,000 units, and you're paying for it with these long-term contracts. So these extra 100,000 units are something that is extra above and beyond that you have, and so this is where you make all of your profit. And that is what a courier company business model does. So one of the ways to kind of detect it, if you are looking for it inside a company, one of the ways to detect it is that there is usually, almost always that I've seen it, there's two different sales forces. There's a sales force that takes care of selling the products, this long-term stable clients, and they make sure they're happy and they've got what they need, and all that, and it's a very slow, low cost, business that you just keep satisfying those clients. And then the second sales force is kind of like on steroids, and they're running around trying to sell this extra 100,000 units, and they're compensated completely differently than the first sales force. And this works out to be an extremely good business model because it provides a lot of stability and it provides a lot of peace of mind because you've got this stable business. And then it takes away all of the distractions and things from management so that they can go out and they can look at some of the other things that they can go and make all of their money on. And so good peace of mind business model and fantastic business model for growth, especially right after you set up one of these pipelines, and then you've got, for growth, you've got all the other applications that you could sell the additional capacity. So that is in essence what the Courier business model is. What are some of the applications that I have seen over the years around the world? And some of them are going to surprise you because there are businesses that are running this business model that have nothing to do with, in this case, something like a pipeline. You can see how a pipeline works really, really well in this type of a business model. It doesn't mean every pipeline is run this way, though. I've seen pipeline companies, they don't run this way. They've got the majority of their clients are erratic, short-term, and they're trying to piece together all this stuff. It's a lot of energy expelled and a lot of volatility in the sales of the company. But then there are other pipeline companies that have this kind of a business model, and it allows for the long-term planning and growth of the company. That's a business model that I would prefer, and it would be something much better in my mind for the longer term and the sanity of management. So obviously a pipeline business would be a great application. A second application would be something like a courier company. And so you can see here, you've got a courier truck that's running from Montreal all the way to Toronto. And you could organize this courier business in many different ways. But one of the best business models that I've seen for a courier company is they have 3/4 of their truck that runs long, stable business back and forth, and with huge clients that are not going to go out of business tomorrow. The Walmarts and the Home Depots and the Lowe's and companies like that. And then they keep 1/4 of the capacity of each of their trucks. And they say that's how we're going to make the majority of our profit. And so they go to infrequent clients, and clients like you and I. So it costs, let's say it costs $30 to ship a small box from here to Toronto on one of these courier companies for you and I. When Walmart does the same box, it might cost them 1/10. It might cost them $3. $30, $3. So you can see where all of the profit is made at the courier company. They've got the long-term, stable business paying for all of the infrastructure, all the salaries, and making all the profit off of people like you and I. Another application, Costco. Believe it or not, for many years, Costco, if you were to look at the financial statements of Costco, you could see that all of the stuff that they did, the warehouse, the lights, the buying of the material, the costs of everything that is for sale in Costco, and the salaries of all of the employees and the head office costs, and all that, and when they ran their business, all of that stuff, including the small profit margins on all the stuff that they sell, they sold it all at zero cost, zero profit. So everything that they did was at zero profit. Can anyone undercut a company for the long term that sells something at zero profit and does it and has a bunch of efficiency in it? No, you can't. So where Costco was making all of their money, if you look at their past financial statements over many years, where they were making all of their money was on the membership fees. And so the dollar amount that they made in membership fees approximately equaled the profit at the bottom line of the entire company, which means the whole company was run at cost, and then they charged membership fees, and that was all of the profit. Very similar business model to this. Another application, some of you may know Olympus. Olympus is a camera manufacturer, and also one of the top endoscope manufacturers in the world. And they would run their entire camera business, including all the R&D on lenses and mirrors and mirrorless and all that. They run their entire camera business at zero profit. And then they would take all of the R&D and everything that they already paid for in their camera business, and they'd apply it to the endoscopes. And the endoscopes were phenomenal, and remains one of the top endoscope manufacturers in the world. And they would use all of that. They've already paid for it all inside their camera business. So kind of very similar business model to even just a pipeline. So lots of other businesses as well where I've seen it work. You have it in some private label manufacturing. So you manufacture for somebody else, and you put their sticker on the product, even though you're manufacturing it for them. And you do all of that at very low margin cost. You do that at cost. But then you have a little bit of capacity on the side where you're actually making your own brand of something. Maybe it's not competing directly with what you're doing for the large manufacturer, but you're making your own brand of something else on the side with the extra leftover capacity that you have. So all of these are examples of Courier business model, and it's one of the 10 that I describe in this book, and I hope you go out and take a look at the other videos that are in this series of the other 9 business models, and I hope it helps, because it's really powerful when you can start to see things that are happening below the surface of a company. Wipe away all the noise, and you can really see what's going on. It really is going to help you figure out, do I want to work there? And do I want to invest there? And maybe both. You know, a lot of companies have stock purchase plans and things like that. Really is going to help in those huge decisions in your life. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoy the rest of the series.